The emergency siren screamed across New Tokyo University as Marcus Chen sprinted through the empty corridors, his engineering textbooks scattered behind him like fallen leaves. The building shook violently, and through the shattered windows, he could see something impossible in the night sky. A massive silver ship, easily the size of 3 city blocks, hung motionless above the campus. Its hull was scarred with what looked like weapon burns, and smaller craft buzzed around it like angry wasps. But these weren't human ships. Marcus pressed himself against the wall as another explosion rocked the building. Glass rained down from the ceiling, and the lights flickered ominously. He should have evacuated with everyone else, but he'd been too busy trying to finish his quantum mechanics assignment in the library when chaos erupted. "This can't be real," he whispered to himself, but the acrid smell of burning metal and the taste of smoke in his mouth said otherwise. A brilliant flash lit up the corridor, followed by a sound Marcus had never heard before, like metal screaming in agony. Something had crashed into the university's east wing, just 50 meters from where he stood. Against every instinct telling him to run, Marcus found himself moving toward the crash site. His curiosity had always been his greatest strength and his biggest weakness. His engineering professors praised it, his parents worried about it, and tonight it might just get him killed. The east wing was a disaster zone. The entire outer wall had been torn away, revealing the night sky and the chaos above. Debris covered everything, and strange, pulsing lights flickered among the wreckage. That's when Marcus saw her. She was pinned beneath a twisted piece of what looked like advanced alloy, but it wasn't the wreckage that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. It was her. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin had a subtle iridescent quality, shifting between pale blue and silver in the flickering light. Her hair was white as starlight and seemed to move as if underwater. Most striking were her eyes, large, luminous, and currently filled with pain and fear. She was also clearly dying. "Help. Me," she whispered, and Marcus was shocked to hear her speak English, though her voice had a musical quality unlike anything he'd ever heard. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed the largest piece of debris and began trying to lever it off her legs. The metal was unlike anything he'd encountered in his material science classes, lighter than it should be, but incredibly strong. "What are you?" he grunted as he worked. "Princess Lyrelai of the Stellarian Empire," she gasped. "My ship attacked, crashed trying to escape. Princess, alien princess." Marcus's mind reeled, but his hands kept working. He'd figure out the impossible parts later. "Why can you speak English?" "Translation. Implant," she managed. "Standard, diplomatic, protocol." Marcus finally got enough leverage to shift the debris. As soon as the weight lifted, Lyrelai cried out in pain, but Marcus could see her legs were badly injured, though thankfully still attached. "Can you move?" Marcus asked. Before she could answer, the building shook again and Marcus heard something that chilled his blood. Footsteps. Heavy metallic footsteps approaching fast. Lyrelai's eyes went wide with terror. "They found me," she whispered. "The Void Hunters. They cannot take me alive." "Who are the Void Hunters?" "Slavers. Murderers. They destroyed my escort fleet to capture me." Her voice was getting weaker. "If they take me, my people will have no choice but to surrender. Billions will die." The footsteps were getting closer, accompanied by strange, chittering sounds and mechanical whirs. Marcus made a split-second decision that would change his life forever. He scooped Lyrelai into his arms, surprised by how light she was, despite her human-like size. "There's a service tunnel system beneath the engineering building," he said. "If we can reach it." A horrifying shriek echoed through the destroyed wing, and Marcus saw his first Void Hunter. It stood 3 meters tall, a nightmare fusion of organic and mechanical parts. Its body was covered in black, chitinous armor, but Marcus could see exposed, wiring and glowing red sensors where its eyes should be. Multiple arms ended in wicked claws, and its mouth was full of metal teeth. It turned toward them, let out another shriek, and began moving with terrifying speed. Marcus ran. He'd been on the track team in high school, but that was nothing compared to running for his life while carrying an alien princess through a collapsing building. Behind them, he could hear more of the creatures joining the chase, their claws scraping against metal and concrete. Left here, Marcus gasped, taking a sharp turn toward the engineering labs. "Why are you helping me?" Lyrelai asked weakly. "Because it's the right thing to do," Marcus replied, though he was beginning to question his sanity. The service tunnel entrance was hidden behind a maintenance panel in Professor Kim's robotics lab. Marcus had discovered it during his first year when he'd been exploring the building's infrastructure for a project. He'd never imagined it would save his life. The panel was locked, but Marcus grabbed a crowbar from the lab equipment and pried it open. The tunnel beyond was dark and narrow, barely wide enough for one person. "Can you crawl?" Marcus asked. Lyrelai nodded, though her face was pale with pain. They squeezed into the tunnel just as the lab door exploded inward. The Void Hunters poured in, their red sensors sweeping the room. Marcus held his breath, praying they wouldn't notice the open panel. For a terrifying moment, one of the creatures approached their hiding spot. Its sensors pulsed, and Marcus was certain they'd been discovered. Then alarms began blaring from somewhere else in the building, and the creatures rushed off toward the sound. Marcus and Lyrelai crawled through the tunnel system for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. The tunnels connected various buildings across campus, part of the university's old heating and power distribution network. They finally emerged in the basement of the physics building, several blocks from where they'd started. Marcus's knees were raw, his clothes torn, and his arms ached from helping Lyrelai navigate the tight spaces. "We need to get you medical attention," Marcus said, examining her injured legs in the dim basement light. "No human medicine," Lyrelai said weakly. "Would be poison to me. But I have emergency kit in my escape pod." "Where's your escape pod?" "Somewhere in the crater. But the Void Hunters will be watching it." Marcus thought for a moment. "What about your ship? The big one in the sky?" "Destroyed. Everyone aboard gone." Tears that sparkled like liquid starlight rolled down her cheeks. "I am the last. If I die, my people will believe the royal line is extinct. They will surrender to prevent the Void Hunters from destroying our worlds. Then we make sure you don't die," Marcus said with a determination that surprised him. But even as he spoke, he wondered what chance a college engineering student could possibly have against an alien army. The answer came sooner than he expected, in the form of a voice that seemed to speak directly into his mind. "Marcus Chen, you have shown courage and compassion in the face of the impossible. This has not gone unnoticed." Marcus spun around, but the basement was empty except for him and Lyrelai. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Lyrelai's eyes went wide. "The voice of the ancestors. But that's impossible. They only speak to those of royal blood or what? Or those who have been chosen." Before Marcus could ask what that meant, the building above them erupted in new chaos. The Void Hunters had found their trail. Chapter 2. The Awakening. The basement ceiling shook as something heavy crashed through the physics building above them. Dust rained down, and Marcus could hear the distinctive shriek of Void Hunters getting closer. "We can't stay here," Marcus said, helping Lyrelai to her feet. She was stronger now, though still clearly in pain. "The escape pod," she said urgently. "If we can reach it, there might be weapons, medical supplies, and a way to contact what's left of my fleet." "I thought you said your fleet was destroyed." "The escort fleet, but there are other ships hidden in the outer system. They're waiting for my signal." Marcus nodded, though privately he wondered if they'd live long enough to send any signals. They made their way up from the basement, moving carefully through the physics building. The campus outside was in chaos. Military helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights sweeping the grounds. In the distance, Marcus could see armored vehicles moving toward the university. "Looks like the cavalry's arrived," Marcus muttered. "Your military won't be able to help," Lyrelai said sadly. Void hunter technology is centuries ahead of anything humans have. They're only still here because they're hunting me specifically. Once they have me, they'll disappear. Then we make sure they don't get you. They reached a window overlooking the central quad. The crash site was clearly visible, a smoking crater about 50 meters across with the twisted remains of what had once been an elegant spacecraft scattered around its edges. And surrounding the crater were at least a dozen void hunters, their red sensors scanning constantly. "That's where your escape pod is?" Marcus asked. "The medical kit is in the pod's emergency compartment. Without it..." Lyra Lee didn't finish the sentence, but Marcus could see she was getting weaker. Marcus studied the scene, his engineering mind automatically analyzing the problem. The void hunters were positioned in a rough circle around the crater, but their attention seemed focused outward, watching for threats approaching from the building perimeters. "There," he said, pointing to a maintenance shed about 30 meters from the crater. "If we can reach that shed, we might be able to get to the escape pod without being seen." "It's suicide," Lyra Lee said. "Maybe. But it's better than staying here and dying slowly." As if summoned by his words, the voice spoke again, this time to both of them. "The path of courage is never without risk, Princess Lyra Lee. And Marcus Chen, your heart shows the true spirit of humanity, the willingness to sacrifice for others, even strangers from distant stars." "Who are you?" Marcus asked aloud. "We are the ancients, the first children of the stars. We have watched civilizations rise and fall for millions of years, and we have been waiting for someone like you." "Like me? I'm just a college student. I fix broken robots and struggle with quantum mechanics homework. And yet you risked your life to save someone you had never met, asked for nothing in return, and continue to help even when faced with impossible odds. This is why humanity intrigues us." Lyra Lee was staring at Marcus with something approaching awe. "The ancients haven't spoken to anyone in over 1,000 years. They are the beings who first taught my people to travel between stars, who gave us the knowledge to build our civilization." "Indeed. And now we offer that same gift to humanity, through you, Marcus Chen." Marcus felt a strange tingling sensation in his mind, as if something vast and alien was brushing against his thoughts. "But first you must prove yourself worthy. Save the princess. Send the signal to her fleet. Show us that humanity deserves a place among the star-traveling peoples." "No pressure," Marcus muttered. The tingling sensation intensified, and suddenly Marcus's mind was flooded with information. Star maps, technical specifications, tactical, data about void hunter weaknesses, knowledge that would have taken human scientists decades to discover, was poured into his consciousness in seconds. He staggered, nearly falling. But Lyra Lee caught his arm. "What did they do to you?" she asked. "Gave me a crash course in galactic warfare," Marcus said, his voice filled with wonder. "I know how to fight them now. I know their weaknesses." He looked out at the void hunters with new eyes. Their chitinous armor looked impenetrable, but Marcus now knew it had a critical flaw. A gap at the base of the neck where organic tissue met mechanical components. A precise strike there would sever their primary neural connections. More importantly, he now understood their hunting patterns. They relied heavily on their sensors, but those same sensors had a blind spot directly above them. "The roof," Marcus said suddenly. "We can reach them from above." "The physics building is 5 stories tall," Lyra Lee pointed out, "and the maintenance shed has a skylight. If we can get onto the roof and rappel down..." Marcus was already moving, heading for the building's stairwell. The knowledge the ancients had given him included detailed architectural information about the campus, information that should have been impossible for them to possess. But Marcus was beyond questioning impossibilities. They climbed to the roof, Lyra Lee leaning heavily on Marcus but moving with determination. The cool night air hit them as they emerged onto the flat rooftop, and Marcus could see the full scope of the battle raging in the sky above. The massive Void Hunter mothership was engaged in combat with what looked like human fighter jets, though the jets were being systematically destroyed. In the distance, Marcus could see more alien ships approaching. Whether they were reinforcements for the Void Hunters or Lyrelai's hidden fleet, he couldn't tell. "We don't have much time," Lyrelai said. "Once the Void Hunter reinforcements arrive, it won't matter if I signal my fleet or not. They'll be outnumbered." Marcus nodded and began setting up a rope system using climbing equipment from the physics department's outdoor adventure club. The ancient knowledge in his head made the process feel automatic, as if he'd done it 1,000 times before. "Marcus," Lyrelai said as he prepared to rappel down to the maintenance shed, "if something happens to me, you need to know. The signal device in my escape pod will only respond to royal DNA. But the ancients have chosen you. If they deem you worthy, you might be able to activate it." "What do you mean if something happens to you?" "I'm dying, Marcus. The injuries are worse than I let you believe. The medical kit might save me, but if it doesn't..." She pressed something into his hand, a small crystalline device that pulsed with inner light. "This is the emergency beacon. If I die, destroy it. Don't let the Void Hunters have it." Marcus wanted to argue, to tell her she'd be fine, but the pallor of her skin and the way she struggled to stay upright told him she was telling the truth. "I won't let you die," he said instead. "You may not have a choice." Marcus rappelled down to the maintenance shed, his heart pounding with more than just adrenaline. The shed was old and mostly empty, filled with lawn care equipment and forgotten sports gear. But it had the advantage of being directly between the physics building and the crash site. From the shed's window, Marcus could see the nearest Void Hunter clearly. It stood motionless, its sensors sweeping back and forth in a regular pattern. According to the ancient knowledge, it would have a roughly 12-second window between sweeps when its sensors were focused away from the escape pod. 12 seconds to cross 30 meters of open ground, locate the medical kit, and get back to cover. Marcus took a deep breath and sprinted. The ground was torn up from the crash, making running difficult, but Marcus pushed himself harder than he ever had before. He reached the twisted wreckage of the escape pod, just as the Void Hunter's sensors began to sweep back toward his position. The emergency compartment was exactly where Lyrelai had said it would be, though it took precious seconds to figure out the alien interface. Inside was a medical kit that looked more like a piece of jewelry than life-saving equipment, a silver circlet embedded with glowing gems. Marcus grabbed it and turned to run back, but froze as he found himself face-to-face with a Void Hunter. It had moved silently while his back was turned, and now it loomed over him, claws extended. Its mechanical voice grated like nails on metal. "Human. Where is the princess?" Marcus's hand moved to the beacon Lyrelai had given him, ready to crush it rather than let these monsters use it to track her down. The Void Hunter's sensors focused on the movement, and it let out a satisfied shriek. "You have royal technology. You will take us to her, or you will die slowly." "I choose option 3, Marcus said, and threw himself backward into the escape pod wreckage. The Void Hunter lunged forward, but Marcus had landed next to something the ancient knowledge had shown him: the pod's emergency self-destruct system. He activated it just as the Void Hunter's claws reached for him. The explosion threw Marcus clear of the crater, but it also alerted every Void Hunter in the area to his location. As he struggled to his feet, clutching the medical kit, he could see them converging on his position from all directions. He wasn't going to make it back to the shed. But then something impossible happened. The maintenance shed exploded outward as Lyrelai burst through its wall, moving faster than any injured person should be able to move. She was carrying what looked like a piece of laboratory equipment, but Marcus recognized it from his new ancient knowledge, a plasma rifle cobbled together from physics department equipment. "Get down," she shouted. Marcus dove for cover as Lyrelai opened fire on the approaching Void Hunters. The improvised weapon shouldn't have been able to penetrate their armor, but somehow her shots found the weak points Marcus had learned about, dropping 3 of the creatures before they could react. "How did you..." Marcus began. "The ancients spoke to me too," Lyrelai said, helping him to his feet. "They said humanity's greatest strength is your ability to inspire others to be more than they thought possible." Together they fought their way back toward the physics building, but more Void Hunters were appearing every second. The mothership above had noticed the commotion and was sending reinforcements. "The medical kit," Lyrelai said urgently, as they took cover behind an overturned car. "I need it now, or I won't be able to help you fight them." Marcus handed her the circlet and she placed it on her head. Immediately, her wounds began to heal, her skin regaining its luminous quality. "Better?" Marcus asked. "Much." Lyrelei smiled, and Marcus thought it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "Now let's save both our peoples." But even as she spoke, the sky above them darkened with the shapes of descending enemy ships. The real battle was just beginning. Chapter 3. The Bond of Stars. The Void Hunter dropships descended like metal vultures, each one disgorging dozens of the chitinous warriors onto the campus grounds. Marcus and Lyrelei had made it back to the physics building, but they were vastly outnumbered. "The beacon," Lyrelei said urgently, pulling out a device similar to the one she'd given Marcus. "I need to signal my fleet now, before it's too late." She activated the device, and a pulse of brilliant light shot skyward, disappearing into the star-filled darkness above Earth. "How long before they arrive?" Marcus asked, firing the improvised plasma rifle at an approaching group of Void Hunters. "If they receive the signal and are already moving, maybe 10 minutes. Marcus looked at the hundreds of enemies surrounding them. "We don't have 10 minutes. That's when the voice of the ancients spoke again, but this time it carried a tone of urgency. "The time for observation has ended. Princess Lyrelei, Marcus Chen, you have both proven yourselves worthy. We will now provide you with the tools you need, but the choice of how to use them remains yours." The air around them began to shimmer, and Marcus felt the same tingling sensation in his mind as before, but much stronger. Beside him, Lyrelei gasped as the same thing happened to her. Suddenly Marcus understood. The knowledge flooding his consciousness wasn't just tactical information anymore, it was something far more profound. He could feel Lyrelei's thoughts, her emotions, her very essence intertwining with his own, and she could feel his. "A mind bond," Lyrelei whispered in amazement. "But that's supposed to be impossible between different species." "Not impossible, simply unprecedented. You two have shown that the barriers between peoples exist only in the mind. Where there is trust, courage, and genuine care for another's well-being, all barriers can be overcome." The bond was like having a direct connection to another person's soul. Marcus could feel Lyrelei's determination, her grief for her lost people, her growing affection for him, and she could sense his fear, his wonder, and his absolute determination to protect her no matter the cost. But the bond gave them more than just emotional connection. Their minds were now working in perfect synchronization, sharing knowledge and processing information at impossible speeds. "The building's electrical system," Marcus said, his consciousness merging with Lyrelei's to form a plan. "If we can overload it, create an electromagnetic pulse," Lyrelei finished. "It won't destroy them, but it will disrupt their sensors and communication." They moved as one person, Marcus heading for the building's main electrical panel while Lyrelei provided cover. The shared knowledge from the ancients let them modify the building's power systems in ways that should have taken hours, but were accomplished in minutes. "Now," Marcus said, and threw the switch. Every light in the physics building blazed with impossible brightness for 3 seconds, then died. But the effect on the Void Hunters was immediate and dramatic. Their coordinated advance became chaotic, as their sensors failed and their communication network went silent. "It won't last long," Lyrelei warned. "Their systems will adapt. Then we make the most of it." They moved through the darkened building like ghosts, using their shared consciousness to coordinate perfectly. Marcus would spot an enemy while Lyrelei was already moving to flank it. She would identify a weakness just as Marcus was preparing to exploit it. But even working together, they were still only 2 people against an army. The Void Hunters had surrounded the physics building and were beginning to adapt to the electromagnetic interference. Their attack was becoming coordinated again. "Marcus," Lyrelei said as they took shelter in Professor Kim's lab, "there's something I need to tell you about the mind bond." "What?" "Among my people, it's permanent. Once formed, it can never be broken. We're connected for life now." Marcus looked at her, seeing not just her physical beauty but the strength of her spirit, the nobility of her heart. the way she cared more about her people's freedom than her own life. "I can think of worse fates," he said. Before she could respond, the lab's windows exploded inward as void hunters poured through from multiple directions. Marcus and Lyra Lee stood back to back, firing at the invaders, but there were too many. Marcus felt a claw rake across his back, and Lyra Lee cried out as another hunter's weapon grazed her arm. They were about to be overwhelmed when the night sky suddenly blazed with light. Lyra Lee's fleet had arrived. The Stellarian ships were works of art as much as vessels of war. Sleek, organic curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. They engaged the Void Hunter mothership immediately, and the sky above became a battlefield of energy beams and explosive detonations. But more importantly for Marcus and Lyra Lee, smaller Stellarian fighters were strafing the campus, their weapons, precisely targeting the Void Hunters while avoiding the human buildings. "They found us," Lyra Lee said with relief. "But how did they know exactly where we were?" "The mind bond," she realized. "It's not just between us. The ancients are using it as a beacon showing my people exactly where I am." The Void Hunters, realizing their trap had become a trap for them, began retreating toward their dropships. But the Stellarian fighters were faster, cutting off their escape routes. Within minutes, the battle was over. The surviving Void Hunters had either fled or been captured, and their mothership was a burning wreck, falling toward the ocean. A larger, Stellarian ship landed on the campus quad, and figures emerged that made Marcus's breath catch. They looked similar to Lyra Lee, but carried themselves with obvious authority and power. "The royal family," Lyra Lee whispered. They came themselves. The lead figure approached them, and Marcus could see the family resemblance immediately. This was clearly Lyra Lee's father, though he looked younger than Marcus had expected and moved with the fluid grace of a warrior. "My daughter," he said, embracing Lyra Lee. "We feared you were lost." "I would have been without him." Lyra Lee gestured to Marcus. "Father, this is Marcus Chen. He saved my life, helped me signal the fleet, and—" She hesitated. "We have formed a mind bond." The king's expression grew serious as he studied Marcus. "A mind bond with an alien. This is unprecedented." "The ancients facilitated it," Lyra Lee explained. "They say humanity is ready to join the galactic community." "And what do you say, human?" the king asked Marcus directly. Marcus felt the weight of the moment. He was speaking not just for himself but potentially for all of humanity. "I say that the universe is vast and full of wonders," Marcus replied, "and that Earth is ready to learn from those who would teach us, to defend those who need defending, and to explore the stars alongside friends we haven't met yet." The king smiled. "Spoken like someone worthy of my daughter's bond." He turned to address both of them. "The Void Hunters will return, probably in greater numbers. Earth will need protection, and humanity will need teachers. Are you prepared for that responsibility?" "We are," Marcus and Lyra Lee said simultaneously, their shared consciousness making their answer one voice. "Then let us begin." As dawn broke, over the campus, Marcus found himself standing at the threshold of a new age, not just for himself but for all of humanity. The stars were calling, and finally, Earth was ready to answer. 3 months after the night that changed everything, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Stellarian ship Harmony's Edge, watching Earth grow smaller in the viewport behind them. The planet looked peaceful from this distance, with no sign of the massive changes taking place on its surface. Stellarian teachers had established schools in major cities around the world. Human scientists were learning technologies that would advance Earth's civilization by centuries. And in space, the first joint human Stellarian defense stations were being constructed to protect the solar system from future Void Hunter incursions. "Having second thoughts?" Lyra Lee asked, joining him at the viewport. Even after months together, Marcus still felt a flutter of wonder whenever he saw her. The mind bond had only strengthened their connection, making them partners in every sense of the word. "Not about leaving," Marcus said. "About whether I'm ready for what comes next." They were traveling to Stellaris Prime, the capital world of Lyra Lee's people. where Marcus would be formally recognized as her bonded partner and inducted into the royal family. It was an honor no alien had ever received. "The ancients chose well," said a familiar voice behind them. They turned to see King Valion approaching, no longer wearing the battle armor from that first night, but instead dressed in the flowing robes of his ceremonial office. Over the past months, Marcus had come to know him not just as a ruler, but as the father of the woman he loved. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, offering the slight bow he'd learned was proper etiquette. "Marcus, I've told you, call me Valion. Your family now." The king joined them at the viewport. "I wanted to speak with you before we arrive at Stellaris Prime. There are some things you need to understand. About the ceremony. About what comes after." Valion's expression grew serious. "Bonding with my daughter makes you a prince of the Stellarian Empire. That's not just a title, it's a responsibility. You'll be expected to help lead our people, to make decisions that affect billions of lives." Marcus nodded. He'd been preparing for this through intensive study of Stellarian law, culture, and history, but he was still essentially a college student from Earth. "I know I have a lot to learn," Marcus said. "Learning isn't the issue. You've proven you can master new knowledge quickly." Valion smiled. "What concerns some of our nobles is whether you'll remember where you came from." "What do you mean?" "Earth is about to join the galactic community, but it will always be your homeworld. Your people will need advocates among the established civilizations, someone who understands both humanity's potential and its challenges." Valion placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I believe you can be that advocate, but others worry that marriage into our royal family might compromise your loyalty to humanity." "Never," Marcus said immediately. "The mind bond doesn't erase who I am. If anything, it's made me more aware of how important it is to protect the things and people you care about. And you care about both our peoples now," Lyrelei added, her thoughts flowing through their connection. "Exactly. Which is why," Valion continued, "I have a proposal. Rather than a traditional wedding ceremony, what would you think about something unprecedented? A union that formally establishes Earth as an allied world of the Stellarian Empire, with you and Lyrelei as the bridge between our civilizations." Marcus felt his heart racing. "You're talking about more than a marriage. You're talking about a formal alliance between our worlds, with Earth as an equal partner, not a subject world," Valion confirmed. "It's what the ancients recommended when they contacted me directly last week." "They spoke to you?" "They speak to many now. The barriers between species are falling faster than anyone anticipated. Humans are proving remarkably adaptable to galactic civilization." Valion gestured toward the stars ahead. "But they need leaders who understand both worlds. You and Lyrelei could be the first of many such partnerships." Marcus looked at Lyrelei, seeing his own excitement reflected in her luminous eyes. "There's more," she said. "Tell him about the academy." "Academy?" Marcus asked. Valion's smile broadened. "We're establishing an interstellar academy on Stellaris Prime. Students from all allied worlds will study together, learning from each other's cultures and technologies. We'd like you to help design the curriculum for the human students and teach some of the engineering courses," Lyrelei added. "Your insights into human problem-solving approaches have impressed everyone who's worked with you." Marcus felt overwhelmed by the scope of what they were offering. "You want me to help shape the future of interstellar education?" "We want you to help shape the future, period," Valion said. "The Void Hunters were just the beginning. There are other threats in the galaxy, other challenges that will require cooperation between civilizations. The partnership between humans and Stellarians could be the model for a new kind of galactic community." Through their mind bond, Marcus could feel Lyrelei's emotions. Her love for him, her excitement about their future together, and underneath it all, a deep sense of purpose. She had been born to leadership, but now she would lead in ways her ancestors never imagined. "When we first met," Marcus said, "I was just trying to help someone in trouble. I never imagined it would lead to this." "The best adventures start that way," Lyrelei replied, "with someone choosing to help a stranger." A soft chime indicated they were approaching Stellaris Prime. Through the viewport, Marcus could see it in the distance, a world of crystal cities and floating gardens, where millions of beings from dozens of species lived and worked together. "It's beautiful," Marcus breathed. "It's home," Lyreley said. "Our home now," as their ship entered orbit around Stellaris Prime. Marcus realized that the scared college student who had run through the corridors of New Tokyo University was gone forever. In his place stood someone ready to help build bridges between worlds, to teach and learn from beings beyond his imagination, and to love someone whose very existence expanded his understanding of what was possible. The stars had called, and Marcus, Chen had answered. Now it was time to help others do the same. Epilogue. 5 years later, Dr. Marcus Chen, Prince Consort of the Stellarian Empire and Earth's first interstellar ambassador, stood before a classroom filled with beings from 17 different worlds. The Galactic Academy had grown beyond anyone's initial dreams, becoming a symbol of cooperation that was changing the very nature of interstellar civilization. "Today we're going to discuss the Battle of New Tokyo University," Marcus said, activating a holographic display that showed Earth as it had appeared that night 5 years ago. Not as a military engagement, but as an example of how individual choices can reshape entire civilizations. A young Stellarian student raised her hand. "Professor Chen, what made you decide to help the princess when you could have simply hidden until the danger passed?" Marcus smiled. The same question he'd been asked 1,000 times by students, reporters, and historians. Through his mind bond, he felt Lyreley's amusement from across the galaxy, where she was currently leading a diplomatic mission to establish relations with a newly discovered species. "Because she needed help," Marcus said simply. "That's what we do for each other, whether we're from the same world or worlds we've never heard of. We help because it's right, and because every person matters." A human student spoke up, one of the first-generation scholars from Earth who had been selected for the Academy. "But weren't you terrified? I mean, these were alien invaders with superior technology." "Absolutely terrified," Marcus admitted. "But fear isn't the opposite of courage. Courage is being afraid and doing the right thing anyway." The class continued for another hour, with students from dozens of worlds sharing their own stories of overcoming fear to help others. It was becoming clear that courage and compassion weren't uniquely human traits. They were universal qualities that emerged wherever intelligent life developed. After the class ended, Marcus walked through the Academy's central plaza, a vast space where students from across the galaxy gathered to study, socialize, and learn from each other. Humans chatted with crystalline beings from the Andromeda Galaxy, while aquatic delegates from the cetacean worlds shared philosophical discussions with gaseous entities from the cloud nebulae. It was exactly the kind of scene that would have seemed impossible 5 years ago but had become beautifully ordinary. "Marcus," called a familiar voice. He turned to see Dr. Sarah Kim, his former professor from New Tokyo University, approaching with a group of new human students. She had been among the first Earth academics to join the Academy's faculty, bringing her expertise in robotics to help develop new forms of artificial intelligence that could serve as translators between vastly different species. "Sarah, how are the new arrivals settling in?" "Better than expected," she said, gesturing to the eager-faced students behind her. "Though I think they're still processing the fact that their quantum mechanics instructor is a being made of living mathematics," Marcus laughed. "Wait until they meet Professor Zixthrel in advanced starship design. Nothing quite prepares you for learning engineering from someone who thinks in 11 dimensions." One of the new students, a young woman who reminded Marcus of himself at that age, stepped forward nervously. "Professor Chen, I'm Emma Rodriguez from Mexico City University. I just wanted to say what you did, saving Princess Lyreley and helping establish the Alliance. It inspired me to apply for the Academy program." "I'm glad to hear it, Emma. But remember, I didn't do anything you wouldn't have done in the same situation. Sometimes the most important moments in history start with the simplest human impulse: to help someone in need." As the group moved onto their next orientation session, Marcus felt a familiar presence approaching through their mind bond. Lyrelai was returning from her mission earlier than expected. He made his way to the Academy's landing platform, just as her diplomatic vessel touched down. The past 5 years had only made her more beautiful, but more than that, they had deepened the partnership between them. They had become not just husband and wife, but true partners in every sense, ruling together, teaching together, and working to build the kind of galaxy they wanted to live in. The Zephyrian delegation agreed to the Mutual Defense Pact, Lyrelai said as she embraced him, their minds sharing not just words but the complex emotions and memories of her successful mission. They were particularly impressed when I told them about human ingenuity under pressure, specifically about a certain human who turned university lab equipment into improvised weapons, among other things. She smiled, then grew more serious. Marcus, there's something else. The ancients contacted me during the return journey. They have news. Marcus felt a familiar tinge of anticipation mixed with apprehension. Even after 5 years, communication from the ancients usually meant significant changes ahead. What kind of news? The good kind, I think. They've been monitoring the development of our alliance, and they believe we're ready for the next phase. Which is how they want to reveal themselves, not just their voices, but their physical forms. They want to establish formal relations with the Galactic Alliance we've been building. Marcus's mind reeled. The ancients had been mythical figures for so long that the idea of meeting them in person seemed impossible. They're ready to take an active role in galactic affairs again? More than that. They want to share their most advanced knowledge, technologies and wisdom they've been holding back until they were certain we could handle the responsibility. What changed their minds? Lyrelai's expression grew warm. Us. Our partnership. The way humans and Stellarians have worked together, and how that cooperation has spread to other species. They say it proves that the galaxy is finally ready for true unity, instead of just temporary alliances. They walked together toward their private residence within the Academy complex, a dwelling that perfectly blended Stellarian organic architecture with human geometric preferences. It had become a symbol of successful cultural fusion, visited by architects and artists from across the galaxy. There's more, Lyrelai continued as they settled into their favorite spot on the balcony overlooking the Academy grounds. They want our children to be part of the next generation of leaders. Marcus nearly dropped the cup of Stellarian tea he'd been reaching for. Children? We haven't even talked about... I know. But think about it, Marcus. Children who grow up, truly bilingual in human and Stellarian culture, who have the mind bond from birth, who see cooperation between species as the natural order rather than something remarkable. Lyrelai's eyes sparkled with possibility. They could be the bridge to an even more integrated galactic community. Marcus looked out at the Academy Plaza, where hundreds of young beings from dozens of worlds were learning to work together, to understand each other, to build a better future. Our children would grow up thinking this is normal, he said wonderingly. Humans and aliens working together, exploring the galaxy as partners rather than strangers. They wouldn't see aliens at all, Lyrelai corrected gently. Just people. People who happen to come from different worlds. The thought filled Marcus with a sense of profound hope. When he'd first met Lyrelai in that destroyed building, he'd been focused on simply surviving the next few minutes. Now they were planning for generations yet to be born. The ancients, Marcus said thoughtfully. When do they want to meet? Soon. They're planning a gathering of representatives from all the allied worlds. A formal ceremony to establish what they're calling the true galactic community, a permanent alliance based on shared values rather than temporary political convenience. And they want us to help organize it? They want us to co-chair it, along with delegates from the other founding species. Lyrelai took his hand, and through their bond he felt her excitement, her love, and her absolute confidence in their shared future. Marcus, we have the chance to help create something that's never existed before. A galactic civilization built on cooperation, understanding, and genuine friendship between species. Marcus thought about the scared engineering student he'd been 5 years ago, running through dark corridors with an injured alien princess. That young man could never have imagined sitting here now, planning the future of interstellar civilization with the woman he loved. Do you think we're ready for this? He asked. I think we've been ready since the moment you decided to help a stranger in need, Lyra replied. Everything else has just been learning how to build on that foundation. As the twin sons of Stellaris, prime set behind the crystal spires of the capital city, Marcus and Lyra sat together in comfortable silence, their minds sharing dreams of the future they would build together. In the distance, they could see ships arriving from across the galaxy, new students, new teachers, new partners in the great work of building bridges between worlds. Each ship carried beings who had once been strangers to each other, now coming together in common purpose. The stars had called, and the galaxy had answered. Not with conquest or domination, but with cooperation and hope. And at the heart of it, all was a simple truth that Marcus had discovered in a moment of crisis 5 years ago. When someone needs help, you help them. Everything else flows from that single, fundamental choice. The future was vast and full of possibilities, and Marcus Chen, former college student, current prince, and always a human being who believed in doing the right thing, was ready to help write the next chapter of galactic history, together with the woman he loved, the family that had adopted him, and the countless friends they had yet to meet among the stars. The adventure was just beginning. The end